For this Before YouTube Build video, I'll cover my Tuskegee Airmen P-51s, but I thought I would first share the story that inspired the builds. You should probably know that my subdivision has a restored late 1800s barn as our community center, and residents could hold events there. So back in 1998, shortly after moving in, I'm outside digging the trench to run my sump pump drainage away from my house so my basement and thus my new model room won't flood. And my neighbor Earl comes out and asks me what I'm doing, and I explain. And as his sump pump outlet is like directly opposite of mine, he asks if he can grab a shovel and join in. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I got some extra pipe fittings down the basement. And I invite him down to the workshop. And he sees a few of my older model planes, and he says, oh, you build World War II planes? Have you ever heard of the Tuskegee Airmen? And I kind of chuckled and I said, yeah, I'm kind of a military history buff. And I related a few historical facts. And he's like, oh, you do know who they are. Would you like to meet some of them? And I'm like, and at that time, you know, this is 25 years ago, World War II veterans were passing away literally at like 1,000 a month or something like that. And I said, yeah, that would be very cool. But, you know, they're passing away at this rate. And I told him, and he said, no. I mean, would you actually like to meet some of them? And I kind of look at him sideways, and he smiles and he says, I'm the vice president of the local chapter of the NAACP, and we're hosting an event at the barn, and a dozen or so Tuskegee Airmen are going to join us as guest speakers, and there will be a reception afterwards, and, you know, would you like to come? You're more than welcome. And I said, wait, what? And he laughed, and I said, you mean to tell me that there's going to be Tuskegee Airmen at the barn right over there, and I can meet them? And he laughs and shakes his head, and I said, hell yes, I'd like to go. So we spent the afternoon digging a trench and talking about the event, and he mentions, you know, I can get autographs if I'd like. So I made this on my computer and I brought it with, and I'll read it later as the planes are on the turntable. So I'd like to start off with, unfortunately, the only photo I have of my neighbor Earl. So he started things off by introducing the historian, who then took over and gave a short lecture and then turned it over to each of the Tuskegee Airmen gathered there. So these are the photos that I took that day, and while part of me wishes I had taken more, you have to remember this is pre-smartphone. So I kind of stayed to the sides and just took a few film photos with my camera. I had to scan these in. So I didn't take any, you know, during the reception. I actually fully attended and enjoyed the event. So looking back, the thing that struck me and really still stands out the most to me from their speeches and later in discourse with them at the reception was that while each spoke of the nasty stuff they had to endure, and obviously not just the incredible rigors of war and combat and conditions, you know, but on top of all that, the indignation of discrimination and isolation, including a lack of supplies and support and what have you. Like one gentleman's story kind of caught that. I think it was in Italy. He was saying it was so muddy that you didn't dare set down your wrench without laying down a rag or a board or something like that, because it would sink into the mud and you would lose it. And good luck getting another one, because they were low man on the totem pole and resupply just didn't exist. And so what struck me then and still stands out to me now is that each of them expressed gratitude. Gratitude to Truman for integrating the military, and thus gratitude for having had the opportunity, despite all the roadblocks thrown in their way, to overcome them all to be the best of the best. And so gratitude for the opportunity to contribute, whether it was through flying or maintenance or whatever, to contribute to securing freedom and liberty, because they knew they were ultimately contributing to their own, meaning blacks, eventual integration and equality. Several of them stated, they realized that their service was really laying the foundation for the civil rights movement to come. So yeah, to a man, wouldn't have traded it for the world. Best thing I've ever done. Words to that effect. So aside from the incredible military service, which I'll speak to shortly, that's really what I took away from this. That is, every single one of us could benefit from at least a few minutes of gratitude. Gratitude for the liberty that this country affords us due to the sacrifice of incredible heroes like these. So as I mentioned, I made this before I went, and during the reception, all of the veterans were extremely generous and lent their autographs, and every autograph came with a story, and you can see there members served in the 477th, the 12th and 15th Air Force down in the lower left there, the 332nd in Italy. In the upper right, that was a second generation pilot who actually flew in the Korean conflict. So just an absolutely incredible opportunity to meet these incredible veterans and tremendous heroes. I built the Revel P-51B, which is actually a C, and the Hasegawa P-51D. This decal set, as you can see here, is made specifically for these two kits so that you can apply those decals and paint scheme to produce any two of these planes. And inside it gives you a description of what each plane looks like and who flew it. And then it also came with this nice little history of the Tuskegee Airmen. So that's what I applied to the kit. On January 16th, 1941, the War Department announced the formation of the 99th Pursuit Squadron, an all-black flying unit to be trained in Tuskegee, Alabama. That same month, the Secretary of the Army announced the training of 429 enlisted men and 47 officers as the first black military personnel in flight school. The bulk of the black flyers were in the 332nd Fighter Group, which consisted of the 99th, 100th, 301st, and 302nd Fighter Squadrons, and the 616th, 617th, 618th, and 619th Bombardment Squadrons. Elements of the 99th, 616th, and 618th also made up the 477th Bombardment Group. While the bombardment squadrons were equipped with B-26s and later B-25s, the 332nd lays claim to being the only group to fly 4 different fighter types. The 12th Air Force flew patrol and attack missions in P-40s, P-39s, and P-47s before some were reassigned to the 15th Air Force in P-51s to escort B-17 and B-24 heavy bombers. Squadrons from the 332nd and 477th fought in campaigns throughout the Mediterranean, Italy, France, Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Germany, and became one of the most respected group of fighter pilots in the war. While the only group to sink an enemy destroyer with fighters in Europe, perhaps their greatest achievement came as escorts, protecting American bombers, having never lost a single bomber to enemy fighters on missions deep into Europe and back. Decorations of the 99th Fighter Squadron include Distinguished Unit Citations for Sicily, June to July 1943, Cassino, May 1944, and Germany, March 1945. I hope you enjoyed that Before YouTube Build video. I've been meaning to make it for quite a while. So if you enjoyed that, I think I only have a few more. So if you enjoyed that, please come back for more Before YouTube Build videos. And as always, thanks for watching and happy modeling.